Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager.
And I'm Brian Michael. As always, we have a very special show for you today. We have some new films, we have some old films, some classics, or maybe not, as well as some Oscar-nominated films. Before we begin, we always want to remind you that if you're watching this on YouTube, to go ahead and click that subscribe button at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, and that'll notify you every time we post a new episode. And it will also make Michael Bay feel a little bit of the pain that we feel when we have to watch one of his films. So it's totally worth it. Push the button. Our first film is Roma, and unless you've been living on the moon, you have been hearing about this film for quite some time, especially if you're a film fan, which I'm assuming since you're watching the show, you most likely are. This is Alfonso Cuarón's newest film after Gravity, and of course he's made other films like Children of Men, and has made some fantastic films over the past few years. This one is playing in theaters currently. Quickly go out and see them as fast as you can. It's also streaming on Netflix, but you know, cinephiles, we went and saw it in the theater, and I also get to watch it at home on a new big screen TV, so that was kind of exciting as well, but the theater was a lot more of an event there. This is a black and white film. I don't want to feel like I got to warn people that, but sometimes I just feel like I always have to. It chronicles a year in the life of a maid of a household in Mexico in the early 70s. And this is one of those films that when your friends watch it, they'll go, nothing happened. Plenty happens in this film. It's actually a very touching and warm film that had me captivated from the very opening shots of that water and the reflection with the airplane. I don't want to give anything away, but it is absolutely astounding. I actually gasped when it happened, all the way to the credits, which everyone stayed for and sat in silence for. It's a beautiful film, and a lot of things do happen, but this film does not doesn't make it very dramatic. Doesn't, you know, there's no big push-ins, there's no big score, there's no. It's just a very simple film. This reminds me, we've been watching a lot of Japanese films as of late, and a lot of them have to deal with a lot of female protagonists, and this one reminded me of those films as well. It's a beautiful, poignant film that just kind of plods along with this little slice of life. The lead actress who plays Cleo, Yalitza Aparicio, I'm probably butchering that.
It's not so bad. It sounds good to me.
Is wonderful.
Amazing.
Without saying many things. Really, it's her actions, and when she smiles, and it's reserved for special moments, when she smiles, it just lights up the entire world of this film. And I really enjoyed this film. I don't think it's the masterpiece that everybody, has, because I try to ignore the hype that we always hear about this. But I thoroughly love this film from beginning to end. It's just
I loved it too.
Film.
So far, this is my favorite film of the year. There's so many things I loved about it. The story, of course, of this woman's life. She's such a wonderful character to follow. She's such a humble, subdued person. Like you said, she's not a dramatic character. She's not. She says a lot just in her eyes and with subtle motions. Yeah. But she's a person in a way who's very much at peace with who she is in her life. And I really liked that about her. We tend to see portrayals of women on screen, drama queens, if you will, women who are, in the midst of a lot of turmoil and drama. And some dramatic things happen to the character of Cleo. But she's not a dramatic character. She takes everything kind of, as it comes. And I really appreciated that about her. And then you also see the family life around her. There's 4 children in the household, and she's caring for them and really is like a substitute mother for the children. Yeah. And I believe the director, this is based on the nanny who helped raise him. And he did feel very close to her and a kinship with her. And I think that comes through in the fondness of which he portrays this character. You mentioned Japanese films of the 50s. The humanistic style of this movie does remind me of those, as well as Italian neorealism films of the 60s. It reminded me very much of those films as well. Although I would say, unlike some of the Japanese movies we've seen from the 50s or the Italian movies of the 60s, this one has a little bit more of a glimmer of hope than some of those films do. You know, some of those Italian neorealism ones, they just rip your heart out at the end. Something like The Bicycle Thief, you're just, by the end, you're just pulverized and you just want to like crawl into bed and cry for the rest of the night. This one left me with a very life-affirming feeling, which I felt like we could really use right now. So I liked that about it.
There's a wonderful scene, and you know, I try to stay away from other people talking about the film until we review it, but everyone talks about the television scene where the family sits in front of the television and they're all kind of one arm, they're kind of linked together because each one has their arm around another, and someone has their arm around her and the kids are laying against her, and it's just this beautiful little moment for just a moment, and you think that, you know, yes, she's part of the family, this is a family unit, this is really nice that she has all of this, and then someone goes, hey, can you get the doctor a tea? And so then she has to get up, and of course you have to remember that she's a servant. There's little things like that where she comes in and the children run to her, or people asking for her, you know, going to her. And then there's the reminder of, oh, this is your place, you're serving them.
Which is interesting, but it's not one of those class type movies that hits you over the head with its class issues, because there's nothing about, and it's that part of her personality where she's at peace with who she is. You never get this sense where she's like, oh, I gotta get up and get the doctor's tea. She just kind of does it, and you know, and it's not like, oh, I'm so happy to be a servant, but it's just a part of the character of who she is. It's
matter of fact.
Yeah, she's very matter of fact about what she does. And I have to mention, beyond the beautiful look of this film, which I think I liked better than you, and the look of it, but I thought it was gorgeous. The soundscape of this movie, and one of the important reasons that you shouldn't watch it on your phone, as some people are saying on places like Twitter, I can't imagine watching this movie on your phone. The soundscape is extremely important in this movie. He is using surround sound.
Amazing.
And so if you were not watching it and listening to it in surround sound, you were not getting the full experience. You can hear the birds and the dogs and the planes and the leaves and everything around
At one point in time, there's a protest outside of a furniture store that they're at.
That scene was amazing.
And they try to move on with their life and kind of put a blind eye to what's going on, and you can hear it the entire time. It's constantly there. It's constantly coming in. I'm all for watching it on the phone. If that is the only way that you can see this movie, I'd rather you watch it than not see it.
Well, obviously, if you're somewhere where you can't get to a theater or a bigger screen, even in a house, I could see that. But I would say that would be the last-ditch option.
I would hope, as a cinephile, if you're watching this show, you certainly are, and if you haven't picked up on this yet, if you do not have the surround system and a big screen TV, you have a friend that does that, and you just need to warm up to that person. Watch a football game over there every once in a while, then every once in a while, hey, let's watch a film. And this is the one that you're saving up for, the favor to watch it on their screen. This is the one to watch, because that surround sound just makes all the difference in the world. You know, the themes of that water comes in, the motif that comes in through this film, especially in that opening scene. There's the airplanes that are constantly going overhead. Oh gosh, and there was another thing that was, this film is continually turning over my head, and I know that I watch it again, because I'm going to watch it again. You're just going to pick up more.
I think it is a masterpiece. I'm putting it down as that, and I think Cuaron is just showing himself as a great. He doesn't make a lot of movies, but he hasn't made a bad movie for the most part. And with Ichi Mama Tambien, Children of Men, Gravity, and this one, that is quite the. I wish he would pick up the pace a little, but if it takes him that many years to make great films, then so be it.
Okay, so we'll move on to our next film, which is At Eternity's Gate. Let's take a look at the clip. Okay, so that clip you just saw is for At Eternity's Gate. This is directed by Julian Schnabel. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. The director of The Diving Bell and The Butterfly and Before Night Falls. Again, that's a pretty good list of films there. This stars Willem Dafoe as Vincent Van Gogh, or Van Gogh. It's okay if you say Van Gogh. In the final years of his life, dealing with his artistic passions, as well as his possible mental issues and shortcomings that he's having that are kind of causing some major struggles in his life. The film does a really great job a lot of times of showing from his point of view. We'll warn you, there's a shaky cam warning that Angela has a hard enough time with that, but there was a couple times where I had to actually look away.
And you don't have that issue like I do.
I do not have that problem, but woofda. A couple of times it was like, ooh, roller coaster.
It's pretty extreme in this movie.
But we get to see things. Okay, so, you know, whenever you're dealing with a film about an artist, you really ever get to see what their inspirations, or they kind of talk about it. And this one I felt came a lot closer to that. And I'm very familiar with his work, so whenever they saw some of the landscapes or saw a person, I went, oh, he's going to paint that person. I know it. And my favorite little scene is this waitress is flirting with him and talking to him. And he's like,
scene.
I would love to paint you, sometime, and of course she lights up, and he turns to the sailor or a postman, somebody with a hat, and goes, "You." And it was like, "Yeah, I know that painting." And the guy was like, "That'd be great." And she was just heartened. She's heartbroken there. Willem Dafoe, again, always fantastic.
Great here.
Really looks the part.
He
wow.
looks, yeah.
I mean, just left.
Despite being way
really
older than the real deal, but still works.
That's fine.
Just looks like him and really embodies him, I think.
So what the film is
well as
kind
we
of
know.
doing here is showing his struggle with, with his disabilities here and that he's having, and really being sympathetic. And some of the things that he does, are really heartbreaking to see. And having Willem Dafoe play this part, because he can play it with such eager and and innocent eyes that he doesn't know. His brother visits him in jail or in the hospital. What happened? He's like, I don't know.
He blacks out.
And he just
doesn't remember.
It's so sad, and it's just so heartbreaking. I love Willem Dafoe's performance in this. This is such a great performance.
He's really good in this. Yes,
fantastic.
And he
I really
hasn't
enjoyed
got this movie has kind of gone under the wire a little bit. I feel like with all the awards season buzz, his performance has been a little underlooked. Compared to the other best actors, and maybe it's just because the movie itself is a little too arty. The movie is very arty, but Julian Schnabel, whatever we pronounce his last name, he was an artist, and his films have often been centered on artists, and he's very interested in those. And there's been a lot of movies about Van Gogh, but a lot of them have fallen short, and I think this movie does, they all have their different takes on the character, obviously, or on his life. But I think what this one really does is portray him as this working creative force who was really not, just not appreciated in his time, but really kind of disliked and looked down upon, not just by his fellow artists, but by the public. And some of those scenes to me were the most heartbreaking when people tell him to his face. They'll see him painting in a field, and they'll go up behind him and look at what he's doing. And rather than just even keep their opinions to themselves, they'll just say, "God, that's ugly," or they just insult him to his face. And on the other hand, so he's dealing with that, the fact that he couldn't sell a single painting, or at that time, and then on the top of that, dealing with mental illness, which he's struggling with and not sure what's going on. And of course, in those times, they also didn't have good treatments or diagnosis, so people are confused by him and sometimes frightened by him, which was another thing. And you see the way people react to him in the conversations. So our friend Valerie sent us some articles, and one thing that I thought was very interesting is that a lot of the dialogue in this movie is taken straight out of Van Gogh was a very, very prolific writer, so he wrote more than 800 letters in his lifetime, mostly to his brother, but to a few other people, and a lot of the dialogue from the movie is just taken straight out of the letters that he wrote, and the kind of words, so the conversations.
So there's a scene that they focus on Mads Mikkelsen, who comes in and plays.
That's the clip we show. Yeah,
absolutely fantastic.
Very
and I think
small
it's just,
part.
They do so many extreme close-ups, and it's just on his face, and he has this conversation, and I don't believe it cuts away to Willem Dafoe. If it does, it doesn't do it enough. But you can hear it in his voice when he's talking about, this is what I see, and he's talking to him about how do you perceive things, and they have this fantastic conversation. But it is really powerful, and I absolutely loved that scene.
That's the scene where, and it's I think the one we have the clip of, he says, "Maybe I'm an artist for people that haven't been born yet." Because he said, "Well, if you think God gave you this gift, then why is it that nobody likes your work, essentially?" And he said, "Well, maybe I'm an artist for people." And that was a really heartbreaking scene.
Oh, yeah, the town signed a petition to keep him out.
I know. I know, they
Oh.
wanted him out of the town. For a film that made me completely nauseous, I recommend it.
Yeah.
The camera movement, I think, could have, he could have used a little steady cam here and there.
It was a beautiful looking film. Of
It
course,
looked
it's
great.
very
It
vibrant
just was so
colors.
shaky, yeah.
And just
the colors were great. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
So how many stars are you giving it?
3.5.
3.5, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful film.
Okay, so we're moving on to our next movie, which is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. And this is the newest film by Joel and Ethan Coen. And this one is an anthology of 6 stories dealing with life in the Old West. So this is a little bit of an experiment even by the Coen brothers, but they love to experiment. Because, whenever you have an anthology series of 6 stories, you run the risk of some of the mini films really being fantastic and some of them falling short. And this film has that very issue, in my opinion. And it's interesting because a lot of critics, this has made their top 10 list, so I guess not everyone has felt that way. But for me, this film, there were some of the films were so good, I almost wanted them to keep going. And then other ones, I was kind of like, if I had to watch, I'd be like, okay, we can wrap it up here. So my two favorites, I'll start with that. So my favorite, actually the very first one, I thought was a hoot. The one with Tim Blake Nelson,
Yes.
which is the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. That's the very first one. It's a
Yes.
mini musical Western with tons of violence. So it felt very Coen Brothers-esque to me, in other words.
Yes.
It felt like a little bit of a Oh Brother, Where Art Thou type feeling to it in terms of the humor. It's a little hammy. There's lots of singing, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. My other favorite is The Girl Who Got Rattled, which is with Zoe Kazan, and that one I really liked. That is the one set in Oregon, and it's about a woman who, is going on the Oregon Trail, and then, tragedy befalls her, and she starts up this relationship with this man who's also on the trail while she tries to figure out how she's going to finish the journey. And that one I thought was really devastating. Some of the others, though, they were okay. We watched it, but I didn't love every single one. And I think for something like this, you kind of have to if it's going to come together as a film.
So there's a couple things. Okay, first of all, three things. First of all, I agree with you. Those are my two favorite ones as well. Secondly, I have a hard time with short films, which is odd for my short attention span, but I always have a problem with the short film because a lot of times they've got to do some little twist. It feels like little Twilight Zone episodes. Twilight Zone did it really well. I don't need to see it in my Coen Brothers films because it felt like some of them are just a short little thing, and I thought, well, where's the twist? What's the thing that's coming up? Oh, it's going to be this. Oh, they're all riding in okay, I know exactly. And if I'm able to guess it, then that's not so good either because I'm dumb as a rock. So those things bothered me a little bit there. The other thing I'm starting to worry about is that, this one is making a lot of lists. It's not necessarily going to be making mine. I like this movie. It's a 3-star film. But the Coen Brothers comedies are not striking me at all like they used to. I think Fargo is their best film, but what was the Hail Caesar? Did nothing for me
Hail
much.
Caesar wasn't very good, yeah.
People are loving that, though, as well. And so and even the Inside Llewyn Davis, even though that wasn't a comedy, though, even the comedic parts of it just sailed right past me, I guess.
I thought that film was great, though, but I think Hail Caesar was a disaster. And The Burn After Reading, which is a comedy, I didn't care for.
It, but it wasn't
okay.
So with this one, the Oregon Trail one is just awesome, and the ending to that movie is what I'll remember this film for. I would have loved to have seen more of that one in a bad way. In a good way, it means leaving you hanging to where you want more, which is a good thing. But no, I wanted way more. I wanted the whole film to be just of that. I like the opening; that was cute. It was funny. And then the other ones, well, the bank robber one I didn't think was too bad. But again, that's another Twilight Zone episode. It was like, is this your first time?
It felt like a Twilight. That one in particular did, yeah. And the one with Liam Neeson, beautiful looking. Oh, and I forgot to mention the look of the film. It's gorgeous. The cinematography in every segment is gorgeous.
We'll have to watch it on the new TV.
Yeah, I'd like to watch it on the big screen. And this is another one though that I'm bummed that they didn't go out to theaters because I like Roma. I feel like it deserves a theatrical release. I would have liked to seen it on the big screen because there's some beautiful cinematography. But it's a 3-star film to me. I can't get there with masterpiece on this one. So.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So we'll move on to our next segment, which is the Oscar-nominated films, which is just a random list, really, of movies that Brian and I needed to watch from different lists, and we put a through line together and said, hey, they've all been nominated for Oscars. What do you know? So this one is Dodsworth from 1936. This is a hard film to find, I will warn you, and is directed by William Wyler, and is about a retired automaker who takes his wife on a cruise to Europe, and once they get there, they find that their priorities are shifting. This is a really interesting film. I was not too familiar with this as a big all-star cast of the time. Walter Houston, Ruth Chatterton, and Mary Astor, among others, and David Nivens, just a great cast. Nominated for a slew of awards. I really loved this film. And one of the things I liked about it is it was strangely dark for 1936 and not... especially the way it starts, because it kind of starts in this way. You're like, oh, it's a rich guy, and it's very fantasy, and there's beautiful gowns, and it's like a lot of the 30s escapist films we're used to. And
riding on the cruise ship.
And he's on a cruise ship, and he's got just so much money that he's retiring young, and and then it goes dark, and it turns out that he and his wife are finding that they don't want the same things from life. He wants kind of the good old American home lifestyle, and she kind of wants to be a European socialite, and never the two shall meet. One of the things I liked about this film, especially more towards the beginning, is that there wasn't really a bad guy or a good guy. They just had different priorities. You kind of find out early on, she kind of flirts and then she figures out, oh, maybe I don't want to go there. But then as the film goes on, she becomes a little bit more of the bad guy, and that was a little disappointing to me. I would have liked if it stayed a little bit more ambiguous. But as a early portrayal in cinema of like a marriage falling apart, I thought it was really fascinating that they went there.
Yeah, it's Walter Houston. I will warn you, if there's anything that people aren't going to like about the movie, it's going to hinge on his performance. And I think he's a fine actor, but that kind of gusto that he kind of has back in those horror films, it's kind of a stereotype now. But I mean, that's kind of the guy he was when he talked about it. And I didn't mind that at all. It is a wonderful film. This has been on a list for a really long time, and I'm glad we just found an excuse for. It was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards. Like that means anything or not? Maybe it does. I don't know. It's beautifully paced. I really enjoyed the journey that they kind of went on. I'll agree with you. I wish they wouldn't have turned it too villainous, just to have it to deal with the matter of fact that, hey, things happen. But, this is an older film, and that's where they had to have someone has to be the protagonist, someone's going to be the antagonist. I wish there would have been, in a good way, I wish there had been more with his European life once he meets her, and because she immediately falls for him, and they're kind of having the back
the
and
Mary
forth a little
Astor
bit
character,
with Mary Astor,
yeah,
Mary Astor's character. I really like that. She is fantastic.
Yeah, and I believe she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, and she's very good in this movie.
She is so good in this, and it's just so effortless, and it just kind of happens over a little bit of time where she's kind of like, I kind of like this guy.
Yeah,
He's
and
got a
she's
lot of
also
verve for
divorced,
life.
which I think was interesting. This is a post-code movie, and we were noting quite a few times that it was pretty racy. There's a scene, I mean, they cut, but you can see they're starting to get undressed, and they're in the room together, and then the camera cuts. But for the time, you have to realize the production code came in 1934. This is a pretty racy film for its time. They were right on that line. You could tell that they were trying.
Now, I like William Wyler. He's a fine film director, knows how to tell a story. Of course, I love The Best Years of Our Lives and Big Country. Now, someone recently saw Ben-Hur, so I'm kind of really interested in what you thought about that.
Did he direct Ben-Hur?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, me in long movies, I was sort of like, oh, when is there going to get to the chariot or the race, When is something, because the scenes where action was happening were great. The race with the horses was fantastic. Of course, it's a famous scene for a reason, but then all the talking with Charlton Heston, I was just like, oh, dear me. And all the, all the Charlton Heston as the great Jewish man was just, I don't know. There was just so much.
You're texting me going, oh, religious epics, they're so long.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be quicker to read the Bible? No, just kidding. It's not even based on it. It's a made up story. It's not even, anyway. So it felt long. That's all I just kept going, oh.
It's a classic.
I kept to admit, I almost hit the fast forward button a few times. I was like, if they talk anymore and don't get to something happening pretty soon. So, yeah, but but Dodsworth is a good film.
They remade Ben-Hur recently, and I'm sure it's a lot more action-packed.
Yeah,
and a lot quicker.
Yeah,
so
but
you get what you
not
want.
any
We should
good.
watch that one.
I don't think so. I think it got bad reviews. So, okay.
You think it got bad reviews. It got like the worst reviews. So we're going to move on to his distinguished classics, another list that we put together. Oh, this is from 1955. This is the French Cancan. This is directed by the great Jean Renoir. I say that with a little question because his two great films are fantastic. And then the other ones I've seen have been good to...
Man.
And this is the... one. We enjoyed watching this together. I would say definitely don't watch this movie alone.
Watch it with Brian and Angela if you want to just make fun of the movie the entire time.
Not always that.
Sometimes I think that's what we should just do is tape us watching the movie and making fun of it, and our audience would love to watch that.
I'll explain to what Mystery Science Theater 3000
I know
is
what
later,
that
guys.
is.
So this chronicles the revival of Paris's most notorious dance, the Cancan. And we have Jean Gabin, who plays the main character, who, of course, we've seen before with Renoir, working with him before. And
every other French director.
And every other French director. And, of course, it's kind of the... We've said this before on the show, so I can say it again. It's a typical Frenchman. He's got the woman that he really loves. Then he meets this young woman that he wants to make her into the newest thing. And then there's the next one. And then there's the next one. And, they kind of show... I like the look of the film. I enjoyed it because we watched it together as an experience. So I would definitely say as a group experience, it was a fun time. But it was.
This one is with the Golden Coach for me. This one didn't work as a movie. It looked a little like TV. It looked a little bit like color TV. I didn't think it was all that great looking for a Criterion release, especially. Yeah. And Renoir. It might be a great director, but man, he cannot stage a dancing sequence. And, I know we were comparing him to really great directors of the time, but and I know you hate the movie Moulin Rouge, but the one thing to say is Baz Luhrmann can stage a dancing sequence a lot better than anything they danced in this movie.
No, we actually showed this one. I showed you the Lubitsch picture where they
Oh,
were
Lula
dancing,
Lubitsch knows how
and
to
it was
stage a
showing it
dancing
with just
sequence.
black and white, and the men in tuxedos and the women in white gowns as they danced around. That's right. Yeah, I can't recommend Can, because immediately I was like, hey, because
He immediately showed me a movie where the dancing was better
fantastic.
choreographed.
Yeah, the choreography in this one was was staged so poorly, I should say, that the camera setup was poorly done. There just was too many cuts. It was in the wrong angle. It was just.
At one
It
point, he
kind of
puts the
reminded me a little
camera
bit
in
of
the
Oliver.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Very much so. And the camera several times was in the audience. Like there's people sitting back watching the Can dancers, and the camera's like behind the guy who's watching it, and we're like, okay, so I'm seeing this guy's head and some dancers.
It's the true experience.
I guess, but I thought, why? But they looked like they had this huge dancing sequence with all these
massive, yeah.
Can dancers and all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
And you're going to shoot it from afar, or you're going to shoot it so from a weird angle, close up, that we can't really see the dancing. I don't know.
How much are
and
you
the
paying
story,
those dancers?
The
'Cause
story
that's a lot
wasn't
of-
interesting enough. And with these great actors, you have some great Maria Felix and John Gambin, as you mentioned, great French actors, but they're just kind of, John Gambin could do this role of kind of the Lothario with his eyes closed. You're not challenging him here. So anyway, can't recommend that one.
Wah, wah. Yep, sorry
Okay.
about that one. So we both can highly recommend Roma. If you can see it in the theater, go, go, go. If you have to watch it at home, that's fine. At Eternity's Gate, we both can recommend as well. Ballad of Buster Scruggs we can recommend, but not as much as we wish we could have recommended. And then, of course, we highly recommend Dodsworth. That's kind of a little find of the week. it's an old film, and it's highly regarded, but maybe you haven't seen it or heard of it, so there you go.
Try to find it. That'll be a hard one.
And then we both can't recommend the French Can, unfortunately, there. As always, of course, you can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to us on KMUZ. You can watch us again on CCTV in Silverton and in Corvallis. You can follow us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. We certainly want to thank our amazing crew. We got one more show this year. This is it.
This is it.
This is it. Woo! Another whole year underneath our belts. Good job, guys. As well as our amazing sponsors. I want to thank Angela and thank you for watching. Have a great day and great movies.